Welcome back to Mindful Nuggets by Tasha T. Today we are going to be talking about suicide. So if that topic is triggering for you, you might want to stop and not keep listening. But if you want to hear me talk about suicide prevention on today, I will be talking about what suicide is, practical and spiritual ways to handle suicidal thoughts, and also talk about some ways to support someone who might have suicidal thoughts. Keep listening. Hello, you all. Welcome back to Mindful Nuggets by Tasha T. I am your host, Tasha T. September is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. This month was started back in 2008 as a way to bring awareness to suicide and to encourage people to access mental health treatment if they're struggling with suicidal thoughts or somebody they know is having a struggle with suicidal thoughts. In 2020, suicide was the 12th leading cause of death. Suicide was the second leading cause of death among individuals amongst the age of 25 to 34, and the fourth leading cause of death among individuals between the ages of 35 and 44. You all, I have been checking the analytics for my podcast, and most of my audience are between the age of 35 and 44. So I want to speak to them. Today, we're going to talk about suicide. So I want to talk about what suicide is, what suicide ideation is, and self-injurious behaviors. So if those things are a trigger for you all, you might want to cut this off. So suicide is when someone harms themselves with the intent of ending their life. That is what suicide is. Suicide ideation is when someone is having thoughts of wanting to end their life. When it comes to suicidal ideation, you have people with what are called passive suicide ideation. Then you have people who have what are called active suicide ideation. I grew up in a home with my mom, my grandmother, and my siblings. My grandmother cared for her brother for a large part of my life because he had a traumatic brain injury. My uncle would always say, he would say this sometimes, he would say, I'll be better off dead. So when people think thoughts like that, it's because they are depressed. That is a passive suicidal thought. Then there are people who have an actual plan to end their life. They might have this idea to do something to take their life. So you have passive and you have active. Just because a person has passive suicidal thoughts or expresses they want to die does not mean that they want to die. But at the same time, that should not be taken lightly. I think that sometimes when people express a desire to end their life or not want to be here, sometimes we could think that person is looking for attention. But I say if people are expressing that they're feeling sad and don't want to be here, they are not being attention seeking. They are being connection seeking. Clearly, this person has a need for connection. So it is really important that we just take the time and listen to people when they are expressing that they don't want to be here. So there is a good acronym to keep in mind when someone around you expresses a desire to end their life. The acronym is LEARN, LEARN. L stands for look for signs. So if a person is expressing extreme feelings of guilt, if they're isolating themselves, if they're using substances more, they're more irritated, their personality is different, that is a sign that this person might actually be thinking about suicide or they're depressed. So it's important to get that person some help. But first off, just really, check in with them, ask them how they're doing. And the next part is empathize. So empathize and listen. So don't just dismiss, you shouldn't think like that. It's okay. I just love you so much. Those things are great. But say, hey, I can really tell you're having a hard time right now. So empathizing involves validating people, acknowledging what they're feeling in that moment versus trying to minimize it. And then you want to just ask that person directly about suicide. I think sometimes we're afraid that if we start talking about something, it might encourage someone to do something. But just ask them, hey, are you thinking about ending your life? And see what they have to say. Next is remove the dangers. Anything in your house that you think could possibly be a weapon, put those things up. I don't want to give you all any ideas about what could be used as a weapon, but if anything could possibly harm you, put those things up. So remove those dangers out of the house. If you have children that you think might be suicide, if you have a spouse, or if you have somebody in your family or a friend who's staying by themselves, maybe have that person stay with you for a short time or stay with them for a short time until they are in a more stable place. The next one is to get help. If you're talking to someone and they continue to express a desire to want to end their life, you can connect them to the National Crisis Line. That number is 988. That number can be called or text. That's the National Crisis Line. There is also another text line. It's 741-741. You can text help, hello, whatever to that line, and also connect to a crisis counselor that way. And if a person is really in a bad situation, you might want to take them to the emergency room or call the ambulance if they're refusing to go. But stay there with that person while they are in distress. You don't want to leave them because you don't know what would happen if you just leave. So just make sure you stay with them until they get help. I am going to also include a link for a safety plan. So if there's someone in your life that you think is depressed, they might have some suicidal tendencies, check out this safety plan. I do want to give you all some verses that I think can encourage those who might be going through a hard time. One verse is Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So know if you're feeling like you're alone, you're by yourself, God is with you. You are not alone. And I also want to share another verse with you. It is Psalm 46:1. It says, God is our refuge and strength and ever-present help in trouble. So if you are feeling alone, know that God is your refuge and your strength. He is your help as you're going through trouble. Another verse is Psalm 23:4. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. That is Psalm 23:4. So although we go through some dark times, sometimes we might feel so alone and isolated. Even during those times, God is still with us. So those are some verses to remember if you yourself might be having some suicidal thoughts or somebody else in your life is having a hard time. You can share those verses with them to encourage them. And I've also given you all some practical tips on what to do if somebody is expressing that they're suicidal, just what to look for to decipher if someone might be being suicidal. And I also gave you all some statistics. So if this episode has helped you, or if you think it might help somebody else, please feel free to share. And please be sure to click on that bell at the end and turn those notifications on so you can be notified of all future episodes. Until next time, you all be mindful. As we come to a close of this episode, I want to leave you with the acronym LEARN. This acronym will help you prevent suicide. The L stands for look for signs, so just look for warning signs. E, empathize and listen. Remember, if this person is sad, they are connecting seeking, so empathize with them and listen. A is ask directly about suicide. Just ask them, are you thinking about wanting to end your life or not wanting to be here? R is remove the danger. So remove any kind of items in your home that could be harmful. And N is next level of care. So if they are expressing a desire to harm themselves or end their life, you want to take them to the emergency room right away. So remember that acronym, LEARN. All right. Until next time, you all be mindful.